Good afternoon. My name is Charles Feuerbach. I'm the Nevada National Security Site Fire Chief, and today I have the distinct privilege to honor James Benton Lawler, or Jim as we know him. As you all know, Jim passed away December 7, 2015. And although he's left us in the physical world, I'm sure he's here with us today, in spirit, and wondering why we are making such a fuss over him. Before I continue, I would like to ask that everybody rise while NNSS Fire and Rescue Honor Guard carries and posts Jim's helmet and folded flags at the table in front of us. Honor Guard, commence.
Honor guard. Halt. Right. Hey. Ready? Post. Ready? 2. Present. Arms. Order. Arms. Left. Pace. Forward. March. Left. 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 Right. Left.
Please be seated. I'd like to give you a little history of Jim's career. We're going to have Deputy Chief Gamby come up and perform the bell ceremony. After that, we'll present flags to Marina and Kenton, and then everyone will be dismissed. Now on your flyer you have the location of the celebration of life. That's where we'll have an open mic for anybody who would like to say comments or share memories with all of us at that time. So Jim was born in Alexandria, Virginia, and graduated from Lake Worth High School in Florida. He began his career serving the United States Air Force as a firefighter from 1982 to 1988, with his last assignment being here at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. He began his civilian firefighter career at EG&G Special Projects in May of 1988 and remained there until July of 1994, when he came to us at the Nevada National Security Site with Rico, the contractor at that time, in August of 1994. During a brief downturn in site activity and closure of fire stations, Jim ventured off to work as an alarm installation technician, but we were proud enough to get him back to us in July of 1997 when we began to staff up the locations and the stations again. The late 1990s saw tremendous change at the NNSS and within our department, and Jim was part of that evolving, sometimes painful process through the years, but he stood firm with us. During his tenure, Jim worked his way through fire and rescue ranks, from firefighter to eventually being promoted to assistant fire chief in October of 2003. Most recently, he transitioned to the role of fire prevention technician in April of 2015, where he faced new challenges in ensuring reliability of the site's 4,000 fire extinguishers and the safety of building occupants. Jim took to this endeavor like a fish in water. He loved this job. I could immediately tell he was enjoying himself. At the end of each day, he looked tired, but he was definitely satisfied. Jim was one of those people you could always rely upon in a pinch to help out, especially while off duty. He never expected anything in return. It was good enough for him just to know he helped out. He had a huge heart and would literally give you the shirt off his back if he thought it would help you. In fact, I think he did that 1 year live burn training for me. I think that's Jim doing that right now. Or it's my son. Jim truly cared about his friends and coworkers. He was also the kind of leader to give praise and recommend recognition to his crew when things went well. That's the easy part. But he was also the type of leader to accept responsibility when things didn't go so well. That's the more difficult thing to do as a leader and an officer. In fact, Jim would usually try and take the blame on himself and not share the pain with his crew. This was an example of Jim's character. That's who he was. I remember spending nights at the fire station following long days out in the field during wildland firefighting. When Jim was assigned a site protection duty, that's meaning we had to keep crews in the stations and protect the rest of the site. In case of another emergency response, he would liaison with the cafeteria and housing offices to ensure the returning crews, including myself, had hot food in a room ready for occupancy in preparation of another very, very long day. Jim taking care of these types of activities, including handling any other emergencies so I wouldn't have to worry about them, allowed me to focus on the tasks at hand and operational planning for the next day. This was commonplace for Jim. This was not a rare occurrence. Whatever needed to be accomplished, I could always rely on him to get it done. When I would head in the station early in the mornings, my senior staff and myself worked 4:10, so we arrived pretty early. We usually slip into the kitchen and usually grab a cup of coffee. I've already had about 18 on the way up. But Jim was already usually sitting there, sipping a cup of joe. And I'd ask him, hey, how'd the night go? Do you guys have any calls? He'd get that really, that crooked, big grin. And he'd turn and look at me and he'd say, oh yeah. Then he proceeded to tell me about the visitor room lockouts in the student dormitories, usually involving one or more wet, naked persons standing in the hallway asking Jim to let them back into their inadvertently locked room. This was commonplace. So he'd almost keep a tally in his office. Jim absolutely loved the fire service. He loved his brothers and sisters in the fire service, and I really don't believe he would have been truly happy doing anything else. And most firefighters do something else part-time. You have a lot of time off shift, 3 or 4 hobbies, a couple of extra jobs. But I can tell you, it was in his heart. It was in his soul. It was much bigger than just a career or a job. I could see it in his face, and I knew his character. He deeply loved his wife, Nina, and their 2 children, Kenton and Marina. I remember days at a live burn training either at City of Las Vegas or Clark County Fire Training Center. Nina would come down, bring food. I remember several occasions. They were a little bit shorter than they are now, but they would come down all the time, and we'd see their smiling faces. When Jim would talk about them, and that was very often, his face would literally light up. And we would see that big crooked grin again. That was usually followed by a lot of photos. And back in the day, some of them were actual photos, and then of course flipping through the phone through the time. So when we took on as a department a project of restoring a 1950 Seagrave fire engine, the very one that sits over there on the road, and after several years we were finally getting to get on the road, and Jim had a big part in that. We still needed a siren for the front bumper, among many other small items, before we could truly say it was ready to go. And an old engine without a siren, that just doesn't look right, especially on the front bumper of those old school engines. So one day, Jim pops into my office at the site. He's got that big grin on his face again, and he's holding something behind his back. Well, it turns out he brings around the front, he's got this beautiful old chrome siren for placement on the engine. It took a bit of fabrication and some questionable wiring technique by yours truly, but that siren is still attached to the Seagrave today, entertaining children in elementary schools across the valley and charity events, and that's because of Jim. Jim touched many lives, and we missed by all who knew him. Fire and Rescue will continue to honor his memory through the stories we will tell, especially when we roll out the Seagrave and press that siren button. Goodbye, my friend. We will never forget you. I'd like to invite Deputy Chief John Gamby to the podium. He's going to tell the history of the bell ceremony, and we're going to do exactly that. Chief Gamby.
Yeah, like Chief said, before we conduct the bell ceremony, I'll go over the traditions and history of the bell ceremony. The men and women of today's fire service are confronted with more dangerous work environment than ever before. We are forced to continually change our strategies and tactics to accomplish our tasks. Our methods may change, but our goals remain the same as they were in the past: to save lives and protect property, sometimes at a terrible cost. This is what we do. This is our chosen profession. This is the tradition of the firefighter. The fire service of today is ever-changing, but is steeped in traditions over 200 years old. One such tradition is the sounding of a bell. In the past, as firefighters began their tour of duty, it was a bell that signaled the beginning of the day's shift. Through the day and night, each alarm sounded by a bell, which summoned these brave souls to fight fires and place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow man. When the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was a bell that signaled to all the completion of the call. When a firefighter had died, it was a mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade's passing. We utilize these traditions as symbols which reflect honor and respect to those who have given so much and who have served so well. To symbolize the devotion that these brave souls had for their duty, a special signal of 3 rings, 3 times each, represents the end of our comrades' duties, and that they will be returning to quarters. And so, to those who have selflessly served for the good of our fellow man, their tasks completed, their duties well done. To our comrades, their last alarm they're going home. In honor of Assistant Chief Jim Lawler, he has completed his last alarm. Therefore, we offer the ringing of the bell.
Please rise for the sounding of the bell.
You may be seated.
Uniformed personnel, 10, foot!
Hold. Left. Face.
Ready? 2.
At ease.
C4, fire dispatch. C4, Lawler, fire dispatch. C4, Lawler, fire dispatch. This is the last call for C4. James Benton Lawler. No response from C4 Jim Lawler. The members, family, and friends of the NNSS Fire and Rescue wish to thank Assistant Chief Jim Lawler for his 30 years of honorable service to the fire profession. Although you are gone, Jim, you will never be forgotten. Rest in peace, dear friend.
We'd like you, welcome you to come to the celebration of life there on West Cheyenne and Simmons at the Town Center Lounge. Thank you.
Ready? 2. Right. Base. Forward. March.